So you're new to Transport Fever and you want to make a lot of money early on in the game using freight. Not a problem, I've got you covered. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be starting out in 1850. What we're looking for in the first instance is one of the easy goods routes. Now, an easy goods route is one where you deliver a raw material to a factory, and that factory then delivers an end product. There are three easy goods routes to choose from. You can turn cattle or grain into food, you can turn stone into construction materials, or you can turn oil into fuel. Before you build anything at all, the first thing to do is actually survey the map. What you're looking for is the raw material producer and the factory it needs in close proximity to one another. They shouldn't be too far apart, otherwise you'll be waiting a very long time for your products to turn around. The second and arguably more important thing that you're looking for is at least 2, preferably 3 or 4 cities to then distribute the end product to. One of the biggest pitfalls in setting up a freight route is not having enough end demand to actually keep the factory operating. This will result in the factory stockpiling the raw material, and eventually the raw material will stop producing. In this example, I'm going to be running from the farm just between Chicago and Toronto, transporting the raw resources east along the road and turning it into food. I'll then deliver that food to Chicago, Toronto, and New York. The first line we're going to set up is going to run from the farm out to the food processing plant, and then back by way of a bus stop in the middle of Toronto. You can use bus stops as the delivery point for goods, which is helpful because in the unmodded version of the game, there is no roadside truck stop. As this is early in the game, we can place our bus stop pretty much in the centre of town, and it will still have coverage of both commercial and industrial zones, although it is only commercial that we're looking at when making bread. Because the way to make the most money out of any goods route is to carry goods in both directions, I've set my primary delivery route to also include the drop-off in Toronto on the way back. Since it's using the same piece of road, there's no harm in doing this. Although later on, this probably won't work once traffic starts to build up, and once I want to build a faster road connecting the farm to the processing plant. I'm also hoping that this route will be used to bring bread back to my original truck stop. This can then be picked up from there and ferried onwards to Chicago. To supply New York, I'll set up a dedicated route from the food factory into New York itself. Now, starting in 1850, the biggest thing to take away is that carts are extraordinarily slow. For that reason, one cart alone is not going to be sufficient. We don't want to wait all day to make a little bit of profit. Also, during the early stage of the game, the worst thing you can do to yourself is sit on the loan without spending it. Either repay the loan or max it out in order to make as much money as possible. I've now advanced the game by a year, and as you can see, we've only just started to make any money at all. As we let the game develop, the amount we're making from this initial surge of carts will offset their cost. Just about. But that profit is quickly wiped out by the $30,000 we're paying a year in interest on our loan. To that end, the smartest thing we can do is really pile drive an awful lot of carts down this route. Delivering goods in this way to 3 separate cities means that demand will be quite high, certainly high enough to support up to 40 or 50 carts. I'll now advance the game by 10 years so you can see how I've got on. Here we are now in April 1860. We've got $287,000 in the bank, and that's okay, especially when you consider that our loan is entirely repaid. As you can see, we're now running a heck of a lot of carts, and there's plenty of goods waiting to be picked up at each of the stops. If anything, I'm leaving money on the table at the moment because farming production has over 130 items of raw material ready to be picked up. This is a relatively simple system to understand. As long as there is more demand available, the raw materials will continue to be produced. If a massive backlog of raw materials amasses, raw materials will stop being produced until the backlog is cleared. If the refined material starts to backlog at a stop, again, raw materials will stop being produced until the backlog has been shifted. Running a freight setup in this way is a very effective way to start your game. It's a little bit more costly than working with passengers, and certainly there might not be the food resource and production facility available in order to make this work. It's neither as cheap nor as quick to set up as the passenger point-to-point routes, but the amount of money it makes can be significant. That'll take us to the end of this tutorial. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, why not subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss out on the next one? I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.